Good evening and welcome back to our Community Conversations series hosted by the Unitarian Universalist Urban Ministry. I'm Reverend Mary Margaret Earl, the Executive Director of the UU Urban Ministry. And here's my colleague.
Hello, everyone. Welcome. I'm Monique Marshall-Veal, and I'm the Director of Special Projects. Welcome to our Community Conversations.
And this is the second season of these conversations, and tonight is the fourth in this year's series. Hi, Ronel, how are you? Hi. Ronel is going to be in a little while our guest, and we're happy to have him say hello now, and he'll be back with us in a few moments. So thanks so much for joining us, Ronel.
Thank you.
Welcome. Excited for our conversation with him and his colleagues. So tonight we are focusing once again on the issue of gentrification. We had a webinar last year on this issue, and we thought that it's such a critical issue facing Roxbury that we wanted to feature it again. The mission of the Unitarian Universalist Urban Ministry is to work across race and place to dismantle racism and white supremacy culture and to advance racial, social, and economic justice. We operate a shelter for domestic violence survivors, a workforce program for survivors, after-school programming for high school students, and we live into our mission through the arts and culture and through lectures and gatherings like tonight's webinar. And would you like to tell folks more about this series, Monique?
Sure, yes. So thank you once again, everyone, for joining us. Over the last year and a half, we came up with this idea around community conversations, and the conversations highlight the history, art, and experiences of Black and Indigenous people of color. These conversations provide an opportunity to raise awareness around some of the issues that have plagued the residents of color in Boston neighborhoods. These conversations also provide information on how to support organizations and the work that they are doing to help people of color. And it is always our hope to continue these conversations throughout the year. And one day we will hopefully be together in the fall in person. So please stay connected with us to find out more about our upcoming conversations.
Thank you, Monique. The Urban Ministry has about 50 member Unitarian Universalist congregations from around Greater Boston, and each one of these webinars is sponsored by one of them. Tonight, I'm proud that our webinar is sponsored by First Parish in Weston, a great supporter and champion of our work. I'm pleased to bring you a message from my dear, good colleague, the Reverend Jeff Barsnell, in this Commitment Minute.
Hey everyone, I'm Jeff Barsnell, the minister of First Parish Church in Weston, and we are delighted to sponsor tonight's community conversation with City Life, Vida Urbana. My congregation, like many of yours, has been working with and supporting the urban ministry for many years, in our case over 40 years. In a region where divisions and inequalities have not just persisted but gotten worse, we greatly value our work with the urban ministry. All of our congregations, all of them, must find ways to live in that tension between our region and our world as it is and as it could be. And I think we are called then to take actions that move us in the direction of fairness, equality, and compassion. People and local communities need to matter. I hope you all enjoy the program. Thanks for being here this evening.
Thank you.
Next, would you like to introduce our next feature?
Yes, so again, over the past year and a half, we started promoting small business owners of color. So we started to create what we call now community commercials, and we are showcasing incredible restaurants, great products and services. These commercials have allowed Black business owners to market their business during a very challenging time in our country. And as you think about places to eat, shop, and patronize, please remember the businesses that we have highlighted during these conversations. And we have a commercial tonight by Coils to Locks. This commercial is slightly longer than our others, but that's because they are sharing their passion and their commitment to helping people to care for themselves. So please watch, and thank you for supporting, and we appreciate your time.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I think this is everybody's story, really. And we are just trying to meet a need that's not being met for a particular segment of the population.
We all want to look good, and we all want to feel good. And I think that when you look good, you generally feel good, and that translates into so many other positive things for people. It's more than just a need for something to fill a gap.
When I got the call that I had breast cancer, it was 2 weeks before my daughter's high school graduation, and I decided, other than telling my partner, to keep the information to myself because I didn't want to ruin the celebration. While she started college, I was starting chemotherapy.
When somebody goes through chemotherapy, one of the biggest things that happens is results in the loss of the hair. And hair is such an identifying factor for Black women, and it's so ingrained and part of our culture and our daily life and our daily routine. To lose control over something like that is like losing a sense of yourself.
I met with my oncologist to go over the next steps in my care, and he indicated that I could get a wig prescription if I was interested, and that I could take that to any cancer center boutique and purchase a wig, and that most health insurances covered the cost of these. I went to the hospital where I was being treated. They didn't have the wigs at this particular hospital. I was told that if I wanted a wig, an Afro-kinky wig, I could buy a straight-haired wig and then take it to a local medical salon, and they could put chemicals in it to kink up the wig. And at the time, I felt, well, maybe it's just this hospital. They're behind the times. I'm going to go to some other hospitals. The wig line that they had didn't have any Afro-kinky wigs. In a beauty supply store, you can try on wigs, but you have to try them on in the middle of the store floor. If you can imagine losing your hair or having lost your hair and being told that the only place you can try on a wig is in the middle of the store floor, it really does affect your sense of dignity, your sense of self. You just don't feel like people get it, In a cancer center boutique, there are private rooms, there's a licensed cosmetologist. You are left with your dignity.
You're already going through something really traumatic, and you want to look as much like yourself as possible.
The disparities are downstream consequences of root causes of those disparities upstream. And access to proper wigs post-cancer, there's an absence of those things. And people may not believe it, but there are some patients who, as it is, may turn down chemotherapy if they think they're going to have hair loss.
When you throw in a wig that is not representative of what our hair really looks like, psychologically that does something to you.
I'm happy to report that I'm in remission. The experience, I learned so much from it, and it's from that experience, my interest in turning lemons into lemonade, as I like to say, that really made this business launch that we're doing blossom. I was just determined, after not being able to find these wigs in any of the cancer center boutiques, I just felt like, well, somebody needs to be the one to do this, because in terms of Black women, 1 in every 3 will be diagnosed with cancer in their lifetime, according to the American Cancer Society. The work that Coils to Locks is doing is relatable to anyone. It's a passion, it's a mission.
Very compelling commercial.
Yes.
Okay, so now it is our pleasure to introduce this evening's guests who are coming to us from City Life Vida Urbana, a grassroots community organization that's committed to fighting for racial, social, and economic justice and gender equality by building working class power. Vida Urbana fights for families to stay in their homes and to resist speculation-fueled displacement. They build community control of neighborhoods and fight for legislation to protect and expand rights for all working class renters and homeowners. We're happy to highlight the work of City Life Vida Urbana this evening and happy to introduce representatives from City Life. Would you like to introduce David, Monique?
Sure. Well, I actually have Ronel ready, which is fine.
Okay. Yep.
Ronel, I can do that, and then you can
Great.
take David, that's fine. Ronel Remy is a statewide organizer for City Life Vida Urbana. He is also a husband, father of 2 daughters, a storyteller, motivational speaker, and community organizer who believes that unity and community is essential to sustaining collective development.
And we also have with us this evening, David Mynott, who's an artist, an activist, and an environmentalist who's been a housing advocate for more than 26 years. He volunteered with Share International since 2001, and he volunteered with City Life from 2016 to 2020, and then worked at the hotline and client intake at City Life since 2020. He's lived in and around Roxbury and the South End since 1984. So we are happy to welcome Ronel and David and invite them to join us on camera.
Welcome.
Oh, and we also have Paula. Yay!
Oh,
I'm excited to also welcome Paula Coar this evening. So a little bit, and am I pronouncing your last name right, Paula? How do I pronounce it? Oh, we have a little bit of an audio problem. So while she's
okay, Coar, yay.
Oh, Coar,
Yay.
Coar.
Boy, yay.
Perfect.
Mhm.
Courier. Okay. So
Yes.
Paula's been involved with City Life as a volunteer since 2008. Her family was a victim of the real estate bubble and they lost their home during that time, and City Life fought for them. And over the years, she has felt compelled to volunteer at City Life because of that. She's a native Roxbury resident and has seen all the changes that have come about in terms of gentrification. And she's attuned to the tragedy of America that African Americans have been kept out of home ownership through things like redlining. And she's now a tenant organizer in Roxbury. So we are just delighted to have this wonderful team, Paula, David, and Ronel from City Life Vida Urbana. Welcome.
Thank
Welcome,
you.
everyone.
Welcome to be here.
Welcome.
Hey, thank you. Happy to be here.
Also happy to be here.
Yeah, good to have you for this really important discussion.
Mm-hmm.
So, and we also have somebody else.
Hi.
Hi, we
Angela.
have a visitor, Sister Angela,
Angela.
is popping
Yes.
up through the miracle of technology.
I was having a hard time connecting and it wouldn't work, but so I kept messing with it and
My
then
name is Paula Coar.
All right, well, hello, good evening.
Hello.
there you
So
are,
we're
Paula.
happy to have our neighbors popping in with us.
Paula Coar.
Oh, my name is Paula Coar.
No, that's working. Okay, well, we're going to get started with our conversation. And Sister Angela, you're just going to join in our conversation about gentrification, and you're actually a perfect person to join in this discussion. I'm going to rename you so people know who you are. Sister Angela Cook from Page Academy. Okay, so let's just get started in our discussion. I want to just ask you to begin with, how real is the displacement that is caused by gentrification right now in Boston and in Roxbury in particular? Ronel, do you want to start us off on talking about how real is that?
Sure, I could start with that. I could start with a climate of fear. Every time folks hear that word eviction, especially when they don't understand it, they don't know how it works, so they don't know what to do. But the latest data that we got earlier today, called for over 30,000 got evicted in the past 2 years. We're talking about a pandemic and folks are still getting evicted. A lot of them never went to court. They just have that notice. They find out other places they can go. Either they go to family or friends. We don't know where they go, but some of them did go. And what is also clear is that 3,000 homeowners have done the same thing, living with loved ones and friends, and folks are desperate, they're afraid. And a lot of times when we find them, it's either too late, they already signed things they're not supposed to sign, or some of them just are so afraid and so ashamed, they don't even try to fight, they just go away. And as you can see, all the street corners that you use to know, vibrant neighborhood communities used to see folks have laundromats, have small businesses, mom and pop stores. You don't see a lot of them anymore. You see those big sky rises, and we say, if you're gonna build houses, it's okay, but build responsibly. When you build luxury housing, and you start the price at $2,500 for a bedroom, you're telling us you don't build for the folks who live there already. You're evicting everybody. This is called speculation. And folks who are who makes around $30,000 a year cannot afford to be there. You basically tell them go somewhere they can live. And when we actually look around, there's nowhere for folks to go. The shelters are overrun. Folks are living in the streets. Homelessness is on the rise also. And also our connection with the faith community. We always say, when the folks of the cities are getting evicted, the churches are getting evicted also. The synagogues are getting evicted. It's just a fact.
Yeah, thank you, Ronel. And Ronel, if you can get a little bit closer to your microphone, you're a little bit faint, and I want people to be able to hear every word that you're sharing with us, because it's really important.
Yes. So I'd like to ask a question now. We've all heard this topic about gentrification, and for many people, I'm sure their experiences have driven what that means to each and every one. But can we talk a little bit about what are the driving forces behind gentrification and how is it defined right now and for this audience?
Well, for the sake of our audience, we could say there is such a cultural differences when it comes to housing, when it comes to expectation of housing and then rights, and also having a clear hand games. When you basically live in a community that is already on the edge, when you grew up on the edge, when you always, if the next paycheck don't come, you don't know what to do. So it's basically very easy for people who have the wrong set of ideas, to push you away, to come and invest in your community. There is a community wealth that we built, the security of the community, folks who live there for generations, and to find out they no longer belong there. The stores that they used to shop in, the places they used to take walk, all of a sudden they become strangers to that same place. So it is good when somebody can invest to help a whole community grow. But when someone comes in and fish out of the community, fish the value of the community. I'll give you a good example how it goes. the city just decide we should have a train stop in our community because folks live there, they work there, so they could go downtown, they could do things, This is a good thing for the community because we pass legislation to make sure that happens. But when that does happen, the community suffers from that, which means your own success is being used against you. Because of the success that you have for that train station that stopped in your community, now investors can come and spend much more than they would before for parcel of land, for houses, for abandoned places. And the city give them tax breaks when they do that. But as a result of that, they can charge 3 times what anyone who lives there used to pay or used to charge before. And it's legal. We basically call that, it's not fair, but it's legal. And at the end of the day, if you're somebody who don't make a lot of money, who don't have the right type of education, sometimes who don't have the right skin color, we need to say that too. So then you just get pushed out. You get to sign deals you can't live up to. You get to pay. You get punished for being poor or uneducated.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. David, how about, do you want to share some of your perspective on how you got involved in this and some of the things that you're seeing about in your work at Vida Urbana as well?
Yes, and if I may, to piggyback a bit on what Ronel said, in answering the question, the driving forces behind gentrification. And I think Ronel laid it out very well. The whole idea of speculation. Speculation is a human disease, really. And it's part of what's driving it. As are out of control market forces. Market forces, of course, have their place, but they're not supposed to be driving our lives. They're like a serpent with no eyes, no brain, and no conscience. It simply devours everything in its path, along with its handmaiden commercialization, where everything is commodified, everything has a price, and people are also commodified. And as Ronel has pointed out, people of color in these neighborhoods are not valued in the culture, and their neighborhoods are not valued. And now, of course, businesses are also going under, not just housing. So we have to turn this on its head and restore the proper values. Also, Ronel mentioned the commons, really, in effect, the water, the land, the air, and this belongs to the people. And when it gets commodified, and as he pointed out, the city is selling this to huge corporations that make massive profits and produce housing that 80, 90% of the people can't afford. What does this lead to? So let me get down on my soapbox and answer your question. I came to city life through my work at the Piano Factory in the South End, the first artist live work colony of its kind in the country, which opened in 1974. I moved in 89, and in 95, the owner prepaid the mortgage. And that way, he got out of his agreements with the city, what you would call an expiring use building. And they had a 3-tiered system: market, middle rate, and low income. And all that went out the window. So we had to fight to save our homes. It took us 4 years, but we won. Problem is, as people move out, the units turn over. And now some 25 years later, there's only a handful of artists left. So after that experience, we all became organizers. And years later, I found myself in another tenuous situation at Oliver Lofts in Roxbury Crossing, only a little over a mile down the road. And I won a housing lottery through the BRA and through, I'm trying to think who else, what other agency. And it was great to move in here, but they did a bait and switch. As soon as I moved into the housing, which was supposed to be for artists, which took 6 months to complete that whole process, they suddenly said you have to buy it or move out within X amount of years. So that started a new battle. And since I organized the tenants here, like we did over there, at the Piano Factory, they gave up on that. And those 3 artist units are still just artist units. But they're
Thank you.
all the rest of it sold have as condos.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. And just following up again on the definition and what does that mean when people hear about gentrification? You know, does that always mean displacement? And, you know, are there ever any benefits to the people living in those neighborhoods when gentrification happens? Because you just spoke about bait and switch, and sometimes people get caught in that loop. So would you talk a little bit about what that really means? And, you know, does it always mean displacement for the residents in those neighborhoods?
Unfortunately, it frequently does mean displacement because the people that have lived there for 10, even 50 years can't afford the taxes on their property if they own, and they can't afford the rents either because the new expensive housing that comes in drives up all housing costs, and they can't afford the rents. So they get driven out. So there isn't a plus to gentrification unless it's equitable, it's fair, it's justice oriented, and it recognizes longstanding injustice, particularly against the poor and particularly against people of color that have not been addressed and are exacerbated by gentrification.
Do you want to add anything to that, Ronel?
Yeah, I want to add, it's so good that Dave is able to articulate that. But imagine a family of 3 or mom who lives with 2 kids that doesn't have the resources or that level of understanding to know there's something wrong being done to her, and just have to move from neighborhood to neighborhood to just find out a few years down the line, the same thing will happen to her again. And for those children to inherit those same things that mom had. I know I organized somebody recently who lives in the area of Eviction. She, in 1974, at a protest, her mom was in there. The house had no heat. They were getting evicted, and City Life helped them organize their stay put. So now, maybe 20 some years later, 30 years, she now has a family, a 12-year-old daughter. She's going to the same situation. So those things affect generations of people. It's not just a few of us.
Yeah, thank you. What are some of the neighborhoods in Boston right now that are under the greatest stress of displacement? Where are you seeing this happen the most rapidly?
We see rapidly East Boston is going to the roof. Actually, if there was a scale, we broke it a year ago. Folks are getting—
Where is this again? I'm sorry, where?
East Boston.
East Boston.
East Boston.
Okay.
It's near Logan Airport. We see the area of Revere also, but they're taking it very, very hard. But we see Dorchester also is getting a whipping. We see Mission Hill is going. We see Gleason or the area of Washington Street. It's amazing how they just changed this place over. And it just happens so fast. I'll give you a good example. I live in Somerville when I first moved in Massachusetts. A year ago, I drove by, I said, oh my God. I look at myself, I look suspicious. I should not even be here. I don't belong here. I don't see anything in Somerville I can remember anymore. So, and those are done by design. It's not accident, it's by design.
What about, we're in, the urban ministry inhabits the campus. Most people know by First Church Roxbury. And I think you both know this site. I know David has actually drawn, as an artist, he's drawn our church building here in a beautiful sketch. But we're in the part of Roxbury called Highland Park. What are you seeing? I certainly hear lots of conversation in this community about the pain that people are experiencing with gentrification and, just communities being really disrupted. And I wonder if Highland Park is one of the places that to be undergoing some of this displacement, and what are some of the reasons that this particular forces this particular neighborhood is experiencing?
If I could speak to that, Ronel, since I sort of live across the street from you folks. I live just on the other side of Columbus Ave, and I am on the listserv for the Highland Park Community Neighborhood Group. And because the land is worth so much, and there's so many open lots, and these voracious, greedy developers are just dying to fill them up. Every open piece of land, they want to plop a house down on, and often not in a very attractive house either. So it's a combination of the land being worth a lot of money and greedy developers, and it's creating too great a population density. And I know that the neighbors fight back and organize and try to negotiate, but I still see the city approving oversized buildings that have too large a footprint for too small a lot, over and over and over again, over the objections of the neighbors.
Thank you. And we're happy, Paul, I know we're all having some technical, Monique and I were both having some technical issues being locked out with our videos. So welcome back. We're happy to see you. And Paula, I know that you're an advocate in Roxbury. Is there anything you want to add about some of what you're seeing about the forces of gentrification in this particular community, Paula? And you're on mute, so you might want to unmute.
Okay. Well, I will end up reiterating David and Ronel in terms of seeing gentrification like, be the main problem with communities within the Boston area and also the Cambridge area for that matter. But it's just, people, the greed is, insatiable, and, it doesn't matter what happens to where poor people go. It doesn't really matter to anyone, particularly at the governor right now, but it doesn't really matter where they go. They could die as far as people are concerned. They really don't care. They want to be right here where the train station is, where it's easy to get back and forth downtown. They can have their little restaurants right at the bottom of their apartment buildings. They can have their dogs, whatever, but nobody really cares. That's what I see. And you really saw that Melnia Cass at Mass Ave, where you saw the tents. Never seen anything like that before. So it's just really the greed and the evilness of what's happening to people who are being forced out of their homes. That's what I see. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Can I ask, and I'm sorry, Mona, can I ask one question before you get on to your next question? Because Paul, I wanted to just build on what you just said about, people being pushed out. Where are people moving to? Because they do need to go somewhere. So
they're going into shelters, they're becoming homeless, they're moving in with families, they're sleeping on couches. They're just trying to survive. It's not like they can go to New York. It's not like they can go. Where can they go? They have to find family members. They got to find friends. They have to figure things out. They got to be homeless. They got to get sick. They got to go in the hospital. They got to do some type of crime so they can go to jail to get a place to sleep. I mean, it's desperate. That's really what's happening. So it is causing, excuse me, crime and hopelessness. And then they talk about the crime is high. Yeah, because you're making people homeless. Young men have nowhere to go. Young people have nowhere to go. Anyone graduates from high school or even goes through high school, they have nowhere to go. We have a particular young man, friend of my son, and he was gentrified they only gave his parents a 1-bedroom. So he had nowhere to go. So he resorted to crime, he resorted to doing something, and he went to jail. So he got a place to go now, you know, so that they can fill their prison industrial system. So it's all systematic racism and systemic. Not, no, it's not just racism. It's just systemic of keeping a poor class and keeping people desperate. That's what it is.
Mhm.
Oh,
Mhm.
and
So also,
Margaret,
if
to add- oh, I'm sorry, Ron, I was just gonna say quickly, and people are moving out of the city too, to also answer your question, being
Yes,
forced further and further out. Go
I
ahead,
was
Ron,
about
I'm
to
sorry.
say that I see folks coming to Randolph, Braintree, Brockton, Fall River, New Bedford. They keep going further and inland, you know.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Thank you.
But where do they go further though? Where are they able to go? Are there apartments out there for them? Places for them to live?
There's some apartments was not so expensive. So, but imagine if you work in the city, if you move so far, if you have school, you know, how do you change that over? How do you switch over to that?
Right.
So, but most folks have to do that in order to survive.
Right.
Yeah. And listening to you share, you know, the stories about, you talked about your son's friend. You've also talked a little bit about the woman, Ronel. I think sometimes people don't really understand the impact of gentrification. So I'm wondering if you could share, you know, a little bit more about specific stories, you know, that you have experienced or people that you've actually helped in their situations, to make sure that people really understand the impact of gentrification on, you know, families and residents in Boston.
Yeah.
Oh, actually, I have many examples of folks that we help at City Life, but even I am an example. You know, I got pushed out of the city 6 times, and I did not know I was being pushed away. At the time I worked as a chef, I thought it could be I didn't make enough. But every time I move, I had to move again every few years. So until 2003, I moved back to my sister's house in Randolph. So now I move, I have a wife and 2 kids, you know. I was alone when I got pushed to 5 times, but now I started with her when I started. So now I'm back in the basement until I could get an apartment. And after I was able to save enough, I purchased a house, and things got so bad after I purchased the house. Within a year, I was suicidal. I was losing my mind. I was losing my family. And I couldn't feed my kids. And I come from a time and a place, I believe that if you're not able to provide for your family, then you're not supposed to be alive, you know. So, and then the mortgage company at the time, they used to call me every day. They know the time I was home. They used to harass me. And until one point, this got so bad, I asked my daughter at the time, that was 6 years old, to answer the phone. I asked her, I said, honey, answer the phone, tell them your daddy is not here. I'm a grown man. I believe in doing right. But at that one point, I was so small. I was asking a 6-year-old to be responsible for me. This is what that can do to you. You're not sleeping at night. You're not eating right. I lied to my girl one time. I told her, I took her to shop for some groceries, what we could afford at the time. She wanted cheese. And I lied to her. I said, honey, those cheese are not good. They have so much salt in them. They can hurt you. So because I couldn't afford them. And I would say when I'm at work, I could make extra stuff, extra sandwiches. So I bring some at home. So that is what that does to a family, you know, to folks who care, who want to live. We just want to live. But even that is not enough sometimes. It seems like someone who invests a lot in your community, they have the right to tell you where to go, what to do, in a way that this is their space. They just let you live in there. They give you permission to live in there. It's disgusting.
And I want us to have some more time for a few more questions. I did want to let people know, because I see questions that are coming in the Q&A box, which is terrific. And we will have a time. What we're going to do, we're going to have a little bit more conversation right now with our friends from City Life Vida Urbana, and then we're going to have a commercial break again. And then we're going to come back and invite the audience to ask those questions in Q&A and ask our guests to respond to some of them. So there will be an opportunity to do that. I did want to ask, I'm sorry, did you want to say something? Did somebody try to just say something?
Oh, I'm sorry, Mary Margaret, I just wanted to riff off of what Ronel had said, just very briefly.
Sure, please.
Multiply Ronel's situation 1,000,000-fold, and you can see what it's doing to the state, the country, the culture, the civilization, the world. Commercialization and the problem with market forces and the greed is so serious, and it's hampering our growth so much, it's literally slowing down the evolution of mankind. That's how bad it is, and that, unfortunately, hyperbole. It's literally slowing down our progress forward. And so you can see how important it is to address what Ronel's family went through.
And I think, one of the things I'm hearing a few themes as I listen to you, one is, that there's these forces of like available land, opportunity for profit, and speculation that is happening, and that the people who are being most directly impacted, sometimes they're not, kind of able to see how that sphere is impacting your personal life. Like Ronel, you said you kept being pushed out of home after home. You're working as a chef, then you're raising your family, and these forces are happening that are disrupting your life. And it seems like some of the work of Vida Urbana is both, to kind of peel away the mystery of what is happening, right? And then to empower everyone to work together to make change. That's some of what I'm hearing from you. I also wanted to ask, to play off of Monique's question about, the real stories and I'm, of the stress and disruption in people's lives. And I also want to think about with you, what is the impact to a community, right? So it is impacting individuals, families, lives are being disrupted by being pushed out by, too high rent, you just can't afford, the lack of affordability in these communities. And then what happens to the whole community, right? When there's so much change, and what is lost when there's that level of disruption. And I wondered if you could just talk about, Paula, you're from this community, and you're seeing it change. Could you talk about that from a community perspective?
Well, as an example, another example for me, I was living on Martin Luther King Boulevard, and the people, there's a block, I know everybody knows it. When you take a left from Washington Street, there's a bunch of houses, green townhouses on the right-hand side. So when we moved there was families were there, grandmothers, children, those houses are pretty big. So there were people there, families there. And as gentrifying started, the guy who rented our place, he had a wife and 2 kids. He moves out, me and my sister move in, and then, our sons are in and out, and people are in our house in and out. We had decent square footage of place to rent, and it wasn't that high. That was 10 years ago. And then it creeped up every year. The rent creeped and creeped. And then after 5 years, he wrote us and said, I'm selling my house. His house literally doubled when he, after 5 years, so went from like 320 to some 320,000. And then as time went on, City Life helped us to fight him, and we You know, we're like, we're not moving, we can't move, you have problems here, whatever. So City Life helped us to remain in that house. And then as time went on, then the people stopped selling. So six people was in one family house right next to us. The guy who sold his house sold it to a bunch of college students. So gone was that family. Then, next door to us, a grandmother died. And then gone was basically that family. Then next door to us on the other side, the house sold for $750,000. Mind you, it was worth like 300 when we moved, same square footage and everything. Husband and wife got that with cash from another country. And there's no family, it's just them two professionals. I don't know exactly what they do. I'm just saying that families are disrupted. That's my point. Families are disrupted by this gentrification. And children, there's no family unit. We lived in Roxbury, it was families. We grew up with people for the rest from 0 to college. And so it is really destroying families as well in many different ways. And like David said, it's like, people are just everywhere. They're scattered. And you can't, you don't have that family unit anymore. So that's what's happening as well.
It sounds like the community connections, they're also disrupted, right? Like the ways that communities knit themselves together and support and create, those are being all disrupted. I was very surprised when I came to the urban ministry, and this was 7 or 8 years ago, just hearing like the new condos were $500,000, these little condos, and and people would, the housing prices are remarkable. What they're being sold for. It's quite amazing.
And ironically, I was canvassing Sunday, and they were actually a group of white students and people who worked in this particular building owned by City Realty that owns a number of places up here in Fort Hill. And they were all white people in this house, and City Life is going up on their rent by I think $3,500. That's where their rent is going to be. So they're up here and they're being impacted too. It doesn't, they don't have great jobs, but obviously they all got together and bought this house up here on Juniper Street. And now they're being impacted as well by the greed, which is kind of ironic, but it is what it is in terms of what gentrification is all about. Greed. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I want to take a little bit of a break for our commercial, and we're going to come back and offer an opportunity for our audience to ask some questions in the Q&A function at the bottom of their screen. They can type questions in. And I also want to come back and ask, about solutions and, finding hope and what is inspiring you about this work in the face of, sounds like a lot of hard challenges, and, witnessing pain, experiencing pain, but also what is giving you hope and energy to keep going. So thank you all. We're gonna just show a brief commercial and we will come back in about a minute.
Okay.
My name is Marie Furman, and I am the CEO and president of Black Biz Development Group, LLC. The directory is a digital directory that people who are in business or thinking about getting in business can join. you may not be a Black business. You may be an investor. You may be someone who wants to contribute. You can put your information in the sponsor supporter category so we know that you are available to help sponsor us and to help support us in any way that you can.
Okay. Thank you. So, so I'm going to turn it over to Monique to start facilitating some of the questions.
Sure. Let's see. We have first question is, I am having to consider going out of state to find affordable housing in South Carolina. Where to find a place that is affordable? There's nothing in this state. Any thoughts or feedback for someone who's looking for property but feels like they are being pressured to move out of state?
Wow, it is so unfortunate to hear that. I'm really sorry that's going on. But if you see the city of Boston is super expensive, but if you go outside of the city, they usually someplace that you would find appealing to you. And I don't want to ask you to go to look at Randolph or Brockton, those areas, or Saugus. Actually, I don't think it's fair if I say that. But if you shop around, if you look outside of the city, most likely that you'll find community that you could live in. And that is not super expensive.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Anyone else want to offer some advice for that person? Oh, David, I think you're on mute.
On mute, David.
Yes, there you are.
Oops, sorry about that.
That's
Yeah,
okay.
I would say join a group like City Life in your area. And if there isn't one, start one. I know that's just a beginning, but people power, as I always say, is the new world superpower. And we're the ones who are going to change things. We have more power than we realize. Simply put, there's more of us than there is of them.
Good advice. Thank you.
To change things.
Yes, Paula. Oh, Paula, you are muted.
The South Carolinian person, I totally agree with Ronel that there are some places. The good news about Massachusetts, I must say, there are jobs here. If you're willing to live outside of Boston, there's jobs here. We have excellent insurance. So if you need health insurance, we have that. And those are some of the reasons why people do move here from other places. So, I mean, so something to think about. I have family members that live outside and they come up here because they're like, okay, you all have good insurance. You all have, so, so Massachusetts does have that. So if you need that, and then like Ronel says, there's places far away, not that close to Boston, but there are places out there. Mm-hmm. And there's decent jobs, decent paying. The minimum wage is $15. So 3 or 4 people may be able to afford a 2-bedroom or something like that. Yeah.
Excellent. Thank you. And we have one more question. This one is about rent control. And recently, New York has won successful rent control. Can you talk a little bit about this possibility of it happening here in Boston, and what can we do to support the effort?
Actually, thank you very much. That is that's a question I'm happy to answer. I know if you guys have lived in Massachusetts in the past, 1994, we had rent control. That's the time we lost it, basically. So we have 3 payers at the State House now. And there is there is a bill called TOPA, that's the Tenant Opportunity to Purchase Act. This is a bill that would give a tenant the opportunity to actually match or make an offer if they find out a building they live in is getting sold. They could find a non-profit that can afford the bill, and so they would have that opportunity first. We also have a bill that's called the Lift the Ban on Rent Control. Right now, everything is going on at the State House. We hope we see it after a while, but those bills got extended. We just had an action 4 weeks ago in Westford, Massachusetts. Actually, we were invited. Actually, we used the facility of a UU church over there, in Westford. That's where we had a rally on the turf of the head of housing committee. His name is Ciro, to ask them to see those bills, because for a while they refused to listen to them or to us. And there's also another bill that we have is the housing equity bill. Right now, we're still going through the pandemic. And I don't know if you guys see what happened. The governor last October decided the pandemic was over, stopped the greatest moratorium that we had in the States. And then, but folks are still dying, and then came the Delta. And now we still have Omicron, and other things may be coming. So we do know it's not a magic one that the government should have to say, okay, it's over. We should work with community, with people, to see what they need, meet with them where they are at. We cannot start talking about having communities, helping them survive or thrive, if the conversation don't include them. We cannot come with a plan of what we're gonna do for them and we bypass them. How would we know what they want? I say, sit down with different communities, know what do you want to see in your neighborhood? What is the plan? And in a way, turn back the clock, because right now folks feel they dehumanize the way they're being treated. Any ounce of dignity folks had, they lost them years ago. And I'm saying that the context is, I know someone who live in Hyde Park up to 3 years ago. She left the apartment. She had a son, a 4-year-old son. She called me one night. She saw a big rat on her living room table, a big rat. She took a picture of it and sent it to me. And we used to say it's not true. But that investor came to the community and paid his cash. He wanted to get so much. He never fixed anything and wanted to evict her, no fault. Those stories, they keep going on and on. And the shame of it is that when you always live on the edge, when you feel nobody would give you anything, you feel you don't deserve anything, when these things happen to you, you don't know you can talk about them. And this is what we do at City Life. We explain to folks, you don't need to be afraid. You don't need to be ashamed. That story, they hope you don't speak on it. Speak, learn what's being done to you. Learn to call it what it is. And once you do that, and folks, they will respect you. They will obey when you ask for something. Or they will fight you. At least you live to fight another day. This is what we're seeing, and this is what we actually do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
There's a question in the chat that asks about Lloyd King, who I understand just passed away, Mr. Lloyd King. And it's a question in honor of him, which is asking if we know what Lloyd King did to keep Black people in the community. I don't have the answer to that, but I wonder if one of our panelists does.
Sister Mary, Angela Cook is on. I don't know what capacity, the owner of Page Academy, but I think she knows the real story, and he was a wonderful person. That which I know, and I know he helped the people across the street from Page to stay in their homes, but I don't know the details. I don't know whether you want to bring Angela on to talk about it, but she knows the details and knows him very well. I just want you to know that. I don't know, maybe the panelist knows also, I don't know. I just I don't want to speak
Yeah.
for him. Yeah.
But I thank her
I
for
heard the
lifting it
name.
up, and maybe she'll add a little bit more in the chat.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Um,
Oh, and if I could just add to what Ronel had said, in regards to rent control, we very much need that again in the city. And of course, the opponents will bring up arguments like there won't be enough added to the tax base as a result, and we'll have lawyers and judges living in rent control apartments. You know, the old welfare queen argument, once again, demonizing the poor.
Mm-hmm. And I can add to the rent control. I lived under rent control in Cambridge, and as we are fighting rent control, we had a big campaign a couple of weeks ago, at the State House and with the politicians, and we had like a avenue which people could actually talk about their experience with rent control. And I say that because I lived under rent control, and honestly, I didn't know only 3 cities had rent control while I was living under rent control in Cambridge, and that was Somerville, Cambridge, and Brookline.
In Brookline, yeah.
However, the whole state of Massachusetts was able to vote for or against rent control, and the against rent control people won. So they got rid of rent control. Ronel, you said the date, but when they got rid of rent control, that's when things really kicked off in terms of gentrification and displacement. That's when displacement and gentrification moved totally in. So it was all political. Cities that didn't even have rent control were able to vote for rent control because they, for whatever reasons, evil, racism, whatever, they felt, entitled to vote for something they weren't even part of. It wasn't even in their cities. Only 3 cities had rent control. So it was just like, wow, the fact that you would vote against something that doesn't even impact you. Well, obviously, they knew the future that rent control was going to create gentrification, and what's happening today, getting rid of rent control has created that. So now, as you can see, people can just send you a letter, 3,000, you owe me 3,000, you have to pay 3,000 more this month. And you're like, what? As a tenant. So, yeah. So anyway, rent control is key, and we understand that Mayor Wu is in favor of a form of rent control. So we're happy about that. And so now I think they're also looking at city by city in terms of voting for rent control, and not, of voting for it or against it. So that's another, that could be in our favor because of the populations of the various cities may or may not want rent control. So that's
Thank you.
If I could add something on that, I feel everybody should keep their eyes open, because a year ago, TOPA, the Tenant Opportunity to Purchase Act, it passed, the bill passed. The governor vetoed it.
Yeah.
Actually, I don't know why he would do something like that, because and especially if he know it's not gonna run, if he had made up his mind already. So technically, you telling me if you poor or you broke, you don't have the right to decide where you're going to live. We make that decisions for you.
It's evil. Evil.
Yes, and I can say that, member of the panelists, that I have a Section 8 certificate mobile voucher attached to this unit that I'm living in now. And if I didn't have that, I don't know where I'd be living, because I can't afford the rents in the city. And so I'd be yet another citizen who happens to be an artist displaced. And this is repeated, as you know, ad infinitum across the city.
Thank you. So our next question is, what are the steps someone can take if they are facing eviction? What is their first step? And what rights do they have?
It's a great question.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Up here in Massachusetts, we do have a lot of rights. Only a judge can evict you. And too often folks don't know that. The first thing that we advise you to do is to do your homework. If you have a notice to quit, somebody trying to evict you, they're supposed to send you a notice to quit. They cannot use a conversation they had with you saying, I want you to move in such and such date. I have my mother coming, my cousin, my brother. It doesn't go that way. They need to give you a written notice. They need you to move. Now, once you have that, the first thing that you need to do, assess if you're ready to move or not. Can you move? Can you not move? What's your income and all that stuff? And look, if you have any counterclaim, and what's a counterclaim? It could be there is roaches in the apartment, there is mice, there is rat, there is mold, and you have kids, Those counterclaims, in a way, anything that stop you from enjoying your home, you have in Massachusetts up to 6 years, you can claim that if you go to court. But as you know, most of our people don't want to go to court. They would rather run away instead of going to court because they don't want, because whatever the judge is going to say, they don't know what the judge is going to say. The legal language is tricky. So if they come to City Life and we say, get organized as fast as you can, build a tenant association, find others who face what you're facing, and get their voice added to your voice, and write a letter to that landlord, to that company who's trying to evict you. You need to cite what you want to see done. Also, you should have a date on it. If you send emails, keep a date on it. If you send regular mail, make sure that you have a date on it. Mm-hmm. And also, once you do that, you start meeting with the folks to find out, you facing this, I'm facing that, what can we do? You can call the Department of Inspectional Services. They come and assess what you're saying is true, especially if the owner gets a ticket, that is helping for you. So those are all the evidence that you need when you go to court, if you want to go to court. And another thing you can do, we all have a phone now, take pictures of the conditions and write something about it. If you do that, you prepare yourself to fight on. And if the owner wants to evict you and those things are not fixed, it's supposed to pay you for the lack of enjoyment of your apartment. So that is one way to fight it. And if you come to City Life, not only we teach you how to tell your story, how to fight, and how you can actually win. And that can transform the community that you live in because you agreed not to move, because you agreed to fight.
Thank you, Ronel. And I was going to underscore to contact City Life, Vida Urbana.
City Life, yes.
As a place that's helping people fight. We have a question that says, I'm a senior citizen, Roxbury homeowner, facing continuous challenges finding reputable home improvement contractors. As a retired public school teacher, I don't qualify for government-funded home repair programs. Are there any alternative resources for someone like myself? Someone sort of falling on the edge of things.
Oh, and Mary Margaret, I could address that, but I wanted to add one more thing to what Ronel and Paula had said that I think is important. If someone gets a notice to quit, remember, only a judge's order can remove you from your home. Mm-hmm. We know people who get notice to quit and they flee. They panic and they run. And they end up homeless sometimes because they don't have the someplace to go, they don't have the resources. Do not move. Stay in your home. Learn about your rights and take this step by step. So I just wanted to lay that out for people. That's the mantra. Only a judge can remove you.
That's right.
And
to add to the woman who needs her house fixed, I don't know whether she's part of a community like here in Highland Park, I get all types of emails from tenants like who wants a cat, who want to someone want a cat, or the coyotes are screaming and all that. So I don't know whether you're part of the mailing list, but that might be helpful. I can't guarantee you anything, but the people, if you're going to be on a mailing list like that, you got to have some type of integrity, it seems to me. So I don't know whether you're on a mailing list.
So like join the Highland Park neighborhood listserv or
Yeah,
something like
yeah.
that, and put a call out for reputable. Yeah.
That would be a way for her to maybe find somebody to help her. Maybe like someone who's bored and wants to fix things. I don't know. But anyway. Mm-hmm.
Do you want to ask our wrap-up questions, Monique?
And just to add to what Paula said, I think there's programs available through the city as well for low interest loans and perhaps some grants. And Ronel is the homeowner in the group. Do you have any information about that you can share with us?
I have some folks, but they're not reliable. I wouldn't share them with anybody. I've had some hard time with them. Yeah.
Okay, excellent. Thank you all. You have shared a wealth of information for all of us in this audience, and we greatly appreciate it. And we know that this conversation is one that is deeply rooted for many, and many people want to get involved and stay committed to this work. And I know that your organization, City Life, is doing great things. How can our audience members get involved and support this work that you're doing to finding solutions for so many of the Boston residents? Because we want the greatness of the city and diversity to remain intact, but how can people do that and support your work?
Oh, I would advise anybody who wants to stand up with us, they could go to www.clvu.org. I'll say it again, www.clvu.org. And there you will see everything that we do. You can donate to our organization. You can link up with us and help us with canvassing. You can call your state rep, to ask them to vote on those bills, the housing equity bill, the lift up to minimum rent control bill, and also on TOPA, the Tenant Opportunity to Purchase Act. And or you can come and spend time with us. We meet every Tuesday night from 6:30 until 8:30. Actually, right now, City Life is having a meeting, but we wanted to be with you guys to make sure that the community gets what it needs from us. And if you get our list or review or our emails, you should know we keep you update on all the actions we take in every march, rally, everything we do, we'll let you know. That way you can be a part of transforming this society with us.
Great, and we're going to put your website again in the chat for everyone. And I do know we weren't able to get to everyone's questions. So I'm also going to put my email. If people have follow-up questions, I can connect them with Ronel and Paula and David, maybe you can answer some additional questions.
And Mary Margaret, don't forget our hotline, 617-934.
I'm going to write it right now. 617. What is it?
617-934. 5006.
5006.
Yes, 617-934-5006. Some interesting comments in the chat too, including someone referencing aid for homeowners.
Yeah, so there's building for growth, and I'm also want to ask Christy if she can also put my email in the chat, because there's also somebody asking how to join the neighborhood listserv, and if she sends me an email, I will connect her with that. So there's so much here, there's so much more to learn, and I do want to encourage, for those who've been watching, to support the work of City Life Vida Urbana, to learn more about it, go to their website. But I have both just words of appreciation for you being here with us, for the work that you're doing, and also to ask when we're back more in person, maybe in the nicer weather, would you consider coming here to provide some assistance to our friends in Highland Park who maybe are facing some of these pressures, and maybe you can do, you know, workshop in person here and make some resources available. We would love to have you. As you know, we have a lot of green space, we can be outdoors, and maybe, you know, offer this as a way for some of our neighbors to get more information about how to work with you and get some support.
Thank
That
you.
would be
We would
awesome.
love that. We definitely love
By
that.
all means.
Yeah, by all means.
That would be
Actually,
awesome.
I want to share this with you. We believe a community is a circle where everybody's voice is wanted and everybody is worth it. So I want to say thank you for inviting us tonight. You open your doors to us. We are community, and this I can't say enough about it. Thank you very, very much.
It's really wonderful to have you here. Thank you so
Yes,
much, Ronel,
Yes, thank you
David,
for
and
inviting us.
Paula.
Thank you, everyone.
Yeah.
Paula, Ronel, David, thank you so much.
You're
You're
most
welcome.
Thanks to our viewers. And we hope that we'll see you next month on our community conversation. We're actually going to have our board chair, vice chair, and former vice chair to come talk about the Urban Ministry's new mission statement and what it means for our work to dismantle racism, white supremacy culture, and to advance racial, social, and economic justice. And so they're going to be here to answer those questions. We hope that you'll be here next month for our next community conversation. And thanks, everybody. Have a great night.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Good night.